Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Executive on Tuesday, the 22nd of April. I'm Councillor Claire Douglas, and I'm the leader of the Council and chair of this committee, and Executive is one of the two main decision-making bodies of the Council. So going through to our agenda, the first item there is apologies, and we have apologies from Councillor Lomas and from Councillor Eyre. And we have with us today Councillor Widdowson, who is subbing for Councillor Eyre. So welcome today, Councillor Widdowson. Next item on our agenda today is the declarations of interest. Anybody got any declarations of interest? No, so there are none. Thank you. Item number 3 is the minutes, and that's from the executive meeting held on the 11th of March 2025. So can I see those who are in approval of those as an accurate representation of the meeting? Thanks, everybody. So those are approved as well, and I'll sign them at the end of the meeting for you, Robert. Item number 4 is public participation. And today we have one speaker who is with us in the room, and that is Richard Clancy from Murton Parish Council. Mr. Clancy, would you like to come to the table? And you have 3 minutes. So you want to speak to us about item number 8, which is the Murton Neighbourhood Plan. Would you like me to give you a 30-second warning of your 3 minutes? Okay, please take a seat, and then when you sit down, it should be the second button from the left is the mic. If you press that to make sure that's on, and you will be heard. That's it. Right, off you go. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Quick introduction, Richard Clancy. I've lived in the village of Murton Parish for over 40 years and actually worked for well over 50 years within the parish. I started as obviously on the parish council, and then moved to a neighbourhood plan chairman, and then back to chairman of the parish council. I'm grateful for the opportunity to say a few words about the neighbourhood plan for Murton Parish. Although it's a small parish by population, some 655 persons living in 2 discrete and small areas of the parish, it spreads over 340 hectares. In the centre is a village with a conservation area containing 18th century houses, and on the southern boundary there is a well-designed 21st century housing development. The local plan has given the Greenbelt status to the whole parish except for 2 small, well-defined areas devoted to business. Notwithstanding the pivotal importance of agriculture, the parish contributes to the economic welfare of the city, many of its 50 businesses being closely allied to agriculture. They include the auction centre and the Yorkshire Museum of Farming. We were determined to keep residents and businesses well informed, with 2 questionnaires sent to every resident and the same to businesses. We spent periodic newsletters, had a dropping, and published a monthly report on our website. In the second, a highly detailed questionnaire for residents, we had a return of over 90% from the households in the village and 70% from the residents on the southerly part of the parish. Unsurprisingly, low as there is a large transient population. That's students, basically. We found an overwhelming satisfaction with life in the parish. Well over 90% said they were very satisfied or satisfied, but the bad comments only was the traffic and antisocial behaviour being a few of the main complaints. What stood out was the appreciation of the strict planning regime, which has created and maintained the rural gaps between the village of Osberwick, between the village and business park adjacent to the Stamford Bridge Road.
Mr. Clancy, of 30 seconds.
Right, retained in the local plan. Our interpretation of the national and local plans have led to 12 policies covering environment, community and employment. Two big thank yous really to Professor David Waddington, who has been the backbone of this since its early days, 10 years ago when we first set off. And in his own words, it's been a privilege to interpret the national local plans for our parish, and for enabling us to be successfully. We are most grateful to the planning team whose support was crucial.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clancy, and we will most certainly take your comments and statement into account when we come to item 8, and please pass back our thanks to all of your colleagues and team in the parish for the work they've done on the neighbourhood plan to date. Thank you. See you. Right, our next item is item number 5, which is the forward plan. Can I see those who are willing to approve that forward plan? That's unanimously approved. Thank you, everybody. And then item number 6 is the introduction of citywide public space protection order to cover street urination and defecation, dog fouling and control. So we have Tanya Lyon with us and Pauline Stutchfield also. So who is going to introduce this to us? Tanya, please go ahead. Thank you.
As you say, Chair, this is a proposal to introduce citywide public space protection order. PSPOs were introduced by the government. They allow councils to impose either positive or negative requirements on a specified geographic area, and the penalty for the breach of a PSPO is either £100 fixed penalty notice or prosecution fine. It's important to stress that the proposed conditions of this PSPO are not new offences. They're all existing offences which the PSPO allows us to treat in a proportionate, responsive, cost-effective, efficient way. There are 2 statutory requirements before you can introduce a PSPO. One is that you have to have an evidential basis to justify the conditions that you're looking to introduce. They were discussed at Councillor Pavlovic's decision session back in November and are included as Annex C to this report. And in addition, you must demonstrate that you have public support for each of the conditions. We ran a 2-month consultation from the beginning of December to the beginning of February this year, and we received high levels of public support for each of those conditions. Just taking each condition in terms of the proposal in respect to street urination and defecation. This is an offence that's currently dealt with under a 1998 bylaw, and the sanction at the moment is prosecution route only. It doesn't allow for issue of fixed penalty notice. And while taking into account the impact of that offence and its contribution to alcohol-related disorder, particularly in the city centre, we do feel that at times, if people are particularly trying to be discreet, then prosecuting someone for that offence is disproportionate, and introduction of the fixed penalty notice would introduce some proportionality to the offence. If there was a repeat offender or there were aggravating circumstances relating to that offence, for instance, the offence took place on a sensitive site, or there was a public decency element to the offence, then we could still go directly to prosecution. In addition, being mindful that when we take cases to court for prosecution, it is quite an resource-intensive process. So the officer compiles a case file, it's then reviewed by the manager, then referred to the legal services team who review it, then obviously have to schedule time in court. So by introducing the fixed penalty notice for that offence, it does introduce some efficiency and cost effectiveness to the process. In respect to the dog fouling offence, that is currently fixed at £75 at the moment under the Dogs Fouling of Land Act. So by introducing that offence into the PSPO, it will allow us to increase the fixed penalty notice amount to £100, which will bring it more in line with our current penalty notice for littering, which is £500 at the moment, but there are plans going forward to increase the PSPO fine. So hopefully in years to come, we can bring those offences more in line with each other, given that dog fouling is arguably the more harmful offence. In respect to the final condition in respect of dog control, bringing that offence within the PSPO and allowing us to issue a fixed penalty notice allows us to provide a more reactive, responsive approach to that offence. At the moment, we either have to apply to court for a dog control order, or we have to follow a staged approach through a community protection warning followed by notice. And we are seeing an increase in those offences since the predominance of lockdown puppies. So it does give us a more responsive way of dealing with dog control offences. It's important to draw attention, I think, to the fact that we did get quite a lot of comments in the public consultation in respect to public toilet facilities in the city centre, and just to draw attention to the work that Councillor Kent's been doing in respect to improving access to toilet facilities within the city centre across businesses and retail premises. We would look to increase that or extend that into the nighttime economy going forward. We're also currently running a Choose Respect, Not Regrets campaign in the city centre, which you might have seen on the bollards. And we have got some posters that we propose to ask venues, nighttime venues, to display, which remind people to use the facilities before they leave the premises.
Great, thank you very much, Tanya, and thank you to all the work that has gone into this, because really has been quite extensive, hasn't it, in the consultation, etc. Can I see members that would like to speak on this item at all? No, no, okay. Councillor Pavlovic, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And can I echo your thanks and congratulations to the officers that have been involved in preparing this report, and indeed the evidential base and the policy. As Tanya has said, and I'm not going to repeat, these are existing powers that the council has. This is the opportunity for us to regularise them, to bring them more into line with existing powers. And the consultation, for a 2-month consultation, to get over 1,000 responses and to have such overwhelming support just shows how important these issues are for the public. And I can't let the opportunity go but to thank Councillor Kent for the work that she has been doing in improving toilet facilities. I understand that people are concerned that there's insufficient public toilets. Notwithstanding that, there are very few excuses for urinating in public. Having said that, the more opportunities to use public toilets and to use them for later in the day, that's very much to be welcomed. So this has got the public support. The officers have worked incredibly hard on this. Can I recommend that executive accept the recommendations made on paragraph 45?
Thank you very much, Councillor Pavlovic. And on that note, as he has just pointed out, we've got on page 21 of the pack at paragraph 9, the recommendation to adopt. And I think the option is to implement later in the agenda as well, in the paper, the PSPO in full. And you can see there the results of the consultation and the very strong public support that was received for all 3 of the elements of the PSPO. So can I see those who are in favour of adopting and implementing that in full? Thank you very much, everybody. So that is passed unanimously. And Tanya, now you can go and do that for us. Thank you very much. Item number 7 is the local development scheme. And we have Alison Cook and Alison Stockdale. I'm sorry, Alison. When I see both of you together, it's it always sends me slightly confused, but there we go. Sorry, Alison Cook and Alison Stockdale have joined us this evening, both for item 7 and 8, I would imagine. And the first one is item 7, which is the local development scheme, and it looks like Alison Cook is going to introduce that for us. Please go ahead, Alison.
Thank you, Councillor. So the council has a duty to prepare and update a local development scheme for the city. What that entails is setting out our programme for plan making for all different types of development plans across the city. And we need to prepare that and publish that in public to set out that activity and how and our timescales for commencing such production. We've recently been asked by the government to prepare this. So although we did adopt our local plan at the end of February, we've been asked to particularly update all authorities have been asked to update their local development schemes in light of the new NPPF and the forthcoming new plan making arrangements that the NPPF is introducing and the new planning legislation will be bringing forward. We're presenting to you today an interim local development scheme with our plan making anticipated plan making production on the basis that we are expecting further releases this year in relation to national development management policies, which would affect how we move forward with plan making and what policies we would include, but also how we go about making a new local plan, for example, and how we may go about new neighbourhood plan making. We thought that presenting an interim one would fulfil our statutory duty to update that at the moment. So our last one, our last LDS looked at up to adoption of the local plan, and this moves past adoption of the local plan, looking at a potential start date of new local plan making from mid next year, subject to the new legislation coming into force. We've also set out in our local development scheme a synopsis of where we are with neighbourhood planning and a timetable for supplementary planning documents that we brought to you September last year for decision in terms of priority and how we're moving forward with the production of those as part of this timetable. We did circulate a further document to you, just looking at the government's response to the plan making, their consultation on new plan making. And there are some revisions that they've put in there, which we would subsume into our timetable. The one I particularly wanted to bring up was around gateway assessments, whereby the new style plan making wouldn't result in a, would result in an examination at the end of it, but significantly shorter examination on the basis that throughout the process of plan making for the local plan, there would be gateways where we would get updates from an inspector, for example, of how we're progressing and whether or not we're aligned with the national policy to be able to move forward with the next stages. We're hoping for some further clarity around how that works in terms of timetabling. We do know that they're sticking to their timetable production of 30 months. And when we decide to commence that from the visioning work, the lead up to that is they've said to us that we need to allow as much lead up as possible to feed into that process. We should know more about that when the new legislative guidance comes out later this summer, when we know more, which is why in terms of the interim we've set out that indicative timetable for a new local plan production at this stage, and we're anticipating bringing forward another LDS2 later in the year, supported by a resourcing plan of how we can achieve all the different work streams concurrently. We took the local development scheme to local plan working group last week, and I just have some feedback in relation to the local plan working group. There was quite a lot of discussion around neighbourhood planning actually, and our commitment to neighbourhood planning. We have a statutory duty to deliver neighbourhood planning as an authority and a duty to assist under the legislative requirements. There was a recommendation that came out of working group to more fully support in resource wise our commitment to supporting neighbourhood plans around the authority where they're being planned or made, to support the parishes and the neighbourhood forums that bring those forward. There was also, in terms of the understanding around when we need to commence new plan making for local plan, In terms of that, we are in a 5-year plan review period now that we've adopted the plan, so that essentially the starting point is ours to dictate, but in terms of our document and our interim, we've said potentially from next summer. In terms of SPDs, there was a question around those that were of lower priority to the higher priority SPDs that we've outlined in the paper. At the moment, we obviously have that decision from executive around prioritising those SPDs. So our response to local plan working group was around reviewing that when we have got further into that process to see if there's capacity ahead of the new plan making and their timetable. They will be changing the remit possibly of supplementary planning documents. We know that their local plans, they want to have more detail in the local plans and have fewer supplementary planning documents. So we may find that the style of that local plan becomes a lot more detailed to take on board that information with fewer supplementary planning documents going forward. But we need to see the legislative guidance and changes around that. We also confirmed that there was that the mayoral combined authority will be have a duty to deliver a spatial development strategy as part of their remit now, and we'll be looking at working with them to see how that would affect us in terms of plan making, and we would be able to reflect that in any future local development scheme in terms of how it dovetails with our own production.
Great, thank you very much, Alison. Alison Stockdale, do you want to add anything at this point? No, okay, thank you very much. Can I see who'd like to speak on this item, please? Councillor Widdowson, do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Is it on? Yes, thanks for the report, it's really good. I'd like to specifically highlight 3 critical points that I hope all executive members will take seriously as we move forward. First, the priority must now be to deliver the housing and infrastructure outlined in the local plan. We understand a review is coming, but it is essential that we make one thing absolutely clear today. Not one more inch of greenbelt land outside what's already been allocated in the local plan should be used for housing. Developers must not be allowed to cherry pick new greenbelt sites while sitting on local plan allocations. If we allow that, they'll build where is easiest, not where homes are actually needed, and delay much needed delivery in planned areas. The only way to ensure homes are built with proper infrastructure in sustainable locations is by enforcing the boundaries of the now permanent greenbelt. Second, we should remember the clear conclusion of the planning inspectors. They stated that tripling the housing figure to meet all affordable housing need would be all but impossible to deliver without destroying the setting of York as an historic city. They went on to say that the local plan's current targets are already ambitious and stretch the bounds of what the setting of the historic city can accommodate and what the market will tolerate. That is a very clear statement and one I hope is respected. We have a local plan that balances economic housing and environmental pressures. We must stick to it. Finally, I need to raise a concern about the 5-month pause built into the review process. This delay kicks any real clarity about Labour's housing intentions past the next set of local elections. This isn't really transparent governance. York residents deserve to know what plans are being considered, especially if they could have long-lasting impacts on our communities and green spaces. The review timetable should be brought forward, and any new proposals must be published well ahead of the 27 elections so that we can all judge them fairly. This local plan took decades to get right. We now need to focus on delivering it, not diluting it, not delaying it, and showing clarity to the public about what's coming next. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Widdowson. Councillor Pavlovic. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Alison and all the team that have been preparing this. As we will all know, and this was really quite a complex area of work, and even Alison's explanation was complicated. So I'll try to keep it as straightforward as possible. All local plans have to be reviewed. That's always been the case. That will always be the case. And nothing that's happened in the new MPPF has changed that. We fall within the 5-year period that local plans have to be reviewed as a matter of course. And that's existed for many years. What we have now is an explanation of where the next process is going to be. We took 6 years from submission to get to adoption. We took years prior to that in preparation, and we took this report to Local Plan Working Group, and I was very pleased to see that there was cross-party acknowledgement and understanding of what the process was going to be. And as the leader of the opposition pointed out, it's challenging, the timescale, but we need to make sure that we get it right. And when the starting gun is fired is incredibly important. We have a number of priorities, one of which, and a really significant one, is getting the community infrastructure levy submitted, approved, and examined, which will bring in significant amounts of funding for infrastructure across the city. We also have supplementary planning documents, and notwithstanding the points that Alison has made, is that we have supplementary planning documents that are well in train at the moment, and resourcing is going to be a significant issue. So we need to make sure that when the starting gun is fired on the review, that we can meet a 30-month timescale, and that's why the indicative timings, as were submitted for MHCLG by the 12th of March, which is when we had to give a submission, has to be indicative at this stage. We're still awaiting more guidance from government as to how they want that, the detail, if you like, the nuts and bolts of the plan making process is still to come. We've just had, even today, responses from the consultation. So this is a fluid process. But for those that have said we've agreed a local plan, it is now set in aspic, have a basic misunderstanding of what local plan reviews are. They have to look at an evidence base. That's why we have consultation. That's why we can never set a firm target from now until the end of time. That was understood at Local Plan Working Group. We discussed it at length, and there was an acknowledgement from all parties that that's what a review would entail. So I'm a tad surprised, though I perhaps shouldn't be, by the comments that I've heard this afternoon to make unequivocal statements when the opposition and all opposition parties, including the opposition leader, acknowledged that that this was subject to quite rightful review, because we don't know what the evidence is until we've undertaken the undertaken the visioning work. So I think the work that we've got now is the right interim stage. It's right that we bring it to executive. It's right that we bring it to the public. We're not trying to hide anything. We're saying that a review has to take place, and we will come back when there is more clarity from government as to what detail they're going to want, and we're going to be able to time things more appropriately and relevantly. But 30 months is a tight deadline, and we need to make sure that when we start that process, the officers have got time to undertake it alongside the work that everybody acknowledges, the SPDs, the crucial SPDs on climate and on housing, and the community infrastructure levy is completed first.
Great. Thank you very much, Councillor Pavlovic. So on that note, then we are going to move to the recommendations that are on page 65 under paragraph 14. And it says there that executive is recommended to approve the interim local development scheme at Annex B. Can I see those who are in favour of approving that? Thank you, everybody. So that is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. And thank you, Alison, and to your team for all the work that's been done to date on this. Another step forward with the local plan that was adopted at the end of February, as you have said, that nobody else has managed to get adopted. So well done. Item number 8, then we come to, which is the most important item on the agenda. I think they would think in Murton. I hope so. So we have the Murton Neighbourhood Plan, Examiner's Report and Decision Statement. And again, Alison Cook and Alison Stockdale are here to talk to us about that. Looks like Alison Stockdale is going to speak to us on that one. So please go ahead, Alison. Thank you.
Right, so yes, the Murton Neighbourhood Plan's now been through independent examination, and the report today presents the conclusions of the examination in the Inspector's report, which is attached to Annex B, and recommends that members endorse the recommendations in this report, in the Inspector's report, to enable the Neighbourhood Plan to proceed now to referendum. As a bit of a background, the Neighbourhood Plan's been prepared by the Parish Council with engagement with the local community and the City Council, been through a number of stages of preparation and consultation, which are set out within the report. The purpose of the examination, which was undertaken by an independent examiner, is to consider whether the plan complies with various legislative requirements and meets the basic conditions set out in the Town and Country Planning Act. The examiner did conclude that the subject to modifications which are included in his report, that the neighbourhood plan meets basic conditions and that it should proceed now to a referendum. If the decision today is to proceed, then the referendum should take place within 56 days of today's date, which would be the 14th of July. In terms of the referendum, it does work as a simple majority vote, with all members of the electoral roll in the parish entitled to vote, and is run by the council. In conclusion, I think we'd just like to thank the parish council and recognise the work that they've done in getting the plan to this stage, which has been quite significant. It's quite significant effort to get an neighbourhood plan through.
Thank you very much, Alison. And yes, I think we're all sympathetic with the amount of time it takes to get neighbourhood plans, local plans in place and progressing through the system. So you're quite right there. Who would like to speak on this one? Councillor Widdowson, please go ahead. Thank you.
Apologies, I didn't turn it off as well. I've just realised, sorry. I'd just like to thank you for the great piece of work, and also everybody in Murton that's been involved with it, and good luck with the referendum.
Thank you. Councillor Pavlovic.
Yeah, and I'd like to echo our thanks to Mr. Clancy, to Professor Waddington, and to all the members of the local plan, the neighbourhood plan team that was working on this. And as Mr. Clancy has said, Murton has a population of 650 people. To have prepared this neighbourhood plan, which the inspector did say was a really good example of neighbourhood plans, I think they should be commended for. So I'm happy to support the recommendation that this now goes to referendum, and hopefully the good people of Murton will approve it, and it will then set significant weight around their neighbourhood plan for any future applications.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pavlovic. And on that note, on page 97, we have the recommendations at paragraph 19.1, 2 and 3. So those are that it's recommended that executive agrees the examiner's modifications as set out at Annex C to the submission draft Murton neighbourhood plan, and that subject to those modifications, the neighbourhood plan meets the basic conditions and other legislative requirements. Point 2, agrees that the submission draft Murton neighbourhood plan as amended proceeds to a local referendum based on the neighbourhood area as noted in the examiner's report. And 3, approves the decision statement attached to Annex C to be published on the City of York Council's website. So can I see those who are in favour of approving that? Thank you, everybody. So that's unanimously approved. And so please go forward and take that neighbourhood plan out to consultation now. So thank you very much. And thanks for all of the collective work that you've done on this. It's really great to see it coming through. Thank you. Right, so going back to the agenda then, we have done item number 8. We now move on to item number 9, which is urgent business. And we do have urgent business today that has been circulated to everybody and published on the website as well. So under this item then, we are going to first start with Pauline Stutchfield talking to us about the public report, but there is private elements of the report that I will deal when we come to that if needed, but we may need to exclude the press and public at that point if we want to speak about those private elements. So Pauline, do you want to introduce us to the report for a start, and then we'll go from there? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Your Home is a much valued team within housing services in City of York Council. It operates as an ethical letting agency service. It's a non-profit service that allows people to have the means to pay rent, but cannot afford the expensive upfront costs of deposits and bonds to access the private rented sector. Your Home managed tenancies located in and around York and arrange accommodation for people at risk of homelessness, and they help support them in securing their financial income and support and benefits, etc., to ensure that they can afford their tenancies into the future. The activity undertaken by the Your Home team ensures that there's a constant supply of affordable private rented accommodation. All tenants are referred to Your Home through our housing options team, which is our homelessness team, and the refugee resettlement team. The report outlines how this works and how much funding through government grants facilitates the process of releasing property in an improved condition and at a rent people on low income can afford. This report outlines the very rare opportunity to add a large multi-tenancy property in a city where such opportunities are in short supply at an affordable rent. However, redress needs to be made in process, including seeking ratification of executive approval for what is a significant property matter. as well as needing to revise documentation used in the process. This report regularises, sorry, I'm getting my tongue in my teeth tonight, regularises this process in time for us to move residents into much needed accommodation. Action has been and is being taken to ensure processes and procedures are improved, to ensure correct decision making and documentation is issued in future. The recommendations in this report seek the ratification of a management agreement entered into in late 2024 that didn't come to executive and should have. Seeks approval for the preparation of revised documentation in respect of the management of the property, along with licences to occupy granted to the occupants, and delegates the authority to the Director of Housing Communities, myself, in consultation with the Director of Governance to conclude such documentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Pauline. So can I ask Executive and Councillor Widdowson, would anybody like to speak about anything that is within the private papers, the confidential papers? No? Okay, right, okay. So in that case, then we don't need to go into private session. Would anybody like to ask any questions or speak? Councillor Widdowson, please go ahead then. Thank you.
So just briefly, the paper came so late and the private section I couldn't access from where I was. Therefore, we don't have any opinions on it because nobody's been in a position to review it.
Okay, thank you for that. And yeah, that's rather unfortunate, but you have access to it, I think now, or that needs to be remedied if you don't.
I currently don't have access to it, and the time that I had before this meeting, I couldn't get myself into a position to be able to read it, except for the public papers very briefly. That's why I have no comment to make on it, because it takes time to read it and understand what's happening.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that and understood. Councillor Pavlovic, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. As Pauline has pointed out, your home is incredibly important to York. It's an opportunity for us to work with landlords to access accommodation within the private rented sector that for far too many of our residents they're unable to access, and for those who are vulnerable and at risk of homelessness, the opportunity to engage with the private rented sector is something that we should be supporting, and the team work incredibly hard. We've got over 86 properties working with a number of different landlords. There was a mistake made, and a decision that should have come to executive did not come to executive. The reason that it's come to this meeting as an emergency item is because it was only identified that the process had an error contained within it, and we need those individuals to move into this property on Friday, and so it's unfortunate, as Pauline said. When we need to regularise the process, we need to make sure that the documentation that we have landlords sign is correct. I'm more than happy for audit and governance, for example, to be appraised of the process and to undertake a review of your home. Excuse me, but we do need to make sure that these individuals can move and that the agreements that we have are correct. And I think it's right that the lawyers get the right arrangements in place, and that they be delegated to them and to the Director of Housing to ensure that everything's done correctly.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Pavlovic. And yes, I couldn't agree more. And in fact, the recommendations on page 5, we have 3 there at the moment under paragraph 9, A, B and C. And I'd like to add a further recommendation about a review going to audit and governance. So Robert, are you ready to take down the wording? Thank you. So we propose, for the purpose of transparency and accountability, that a report is prepared for audit and governance committee to consider any process issues raised or identified. So going back to the report on page 5, we have at paragraph 9, the executive is asked to agree, A, to ratify the management agreement entered into in late 2024, B, to approve the preparation of revised documentation in respect of the management of the property and licences to occupy, and C, to delegate authority to the Director of Housing and Communities in consultation with the Director of Governance to take such steps as are necessary to agree and complete the resulting documents. And then D, as I said a moment ago, and I will repeat, propose also, for the purpose of transparency and accountability, that a report is prepared for Audit and Governance Committee to consider any process issues raised or identified. Can I see those who are in favour of those recommendations, please? Thank you. So that's unanimously approved as well. Thank you, everybody. So that concludes item 10. Which was the emergency business that we had identified today. And thank you to Pauline Stutchild for coming today and outlining that to us. And on that note, I will bring the meeting to a close. So thank you, everybody, for your attendance today, and see you next time.